This is, of course, the greatest shame of our generation. The fact that we're killing off our own offspring at greater numbers than ever. In the UK, it's 250,000 babies a year. In the US, I believe we're looking at 4 times that number per year. And what is the government doing in response to that? Outlawing anyone who says anything or thinks anything to the opposite. So we just heard a wonderful testament from Ruth on the mess of Canada, the fact that they used a tragedy to put forward some authoritarian laws that undermine freedom of worship, freedom of religion, freedom of expression. But in the UK, we've gone a step further. There was no tragedy. There's never been a single case of harassment or intimidation or abuse outside of an abortion centre. However, we still put these, what you call bubbles, we call them buffer zones, we still put them into place in the UK too. And the number of cases that are cropping up because of this are astounding. So within 150, do you feet, yards or meters out here? I'm not sure. What's the measurement out here? Right, so within like 200 yards of an abortion centre, if you are caught praying, if you're caught holding up signage, if you're caught conversing with the vulnerable women going into these centres, or if you're just caught being present, you can be arrested, tried, and prosecuted. And this has happened several times. I was just speaking about a case, a wonderful lady called Livia Tosiki Bolt, not as well known as some of the bigger cases because there's no footage of her arrest, but Livia is an elderly lady. She was stood in the vicinity of one of these god-awful abortion centres, holding up a sign, a harmless sign, not saying anything, but holding up a sign that said, "Here to talk if you like." Right? So, very moderate, very mild, not abusive, not intimidating, not harassment. Livia was arrested. Livia was prosecuted. Livia is on trial. We're expecting a verdict in 2 weeks' time. And the reason I bring up her case first is because, again, it's not as well known, and she needs support. All of these people need support because I used to have a TV show in the UK called Common Sense Crusade. And on that show, I used to highlight these cases. And I've had these women on that have, well, I'll call them survivors because some of them are mothers who've gone through with abortion and have repented of that and have been scarred with the trauma of that. Some of them are children whose parents were going to go through the abortion and they've lived with that story themselves. And we highlighted these cases, and many of them have been saved by women like Livia, who have been stood outside abortion centres holding up harmless signs that say, "Here to have a conversation if you would like." So there's no need for that to be outlawed, unless the state explicitly wants us killing our babies. Not only that, we challenged this in the House of Commons, and the Prime Minister said, look, it's very difficult because we've got to balance the rights of women to access reproductive health care versus the right to freedom of protest. And it's just absolutely disingenuous because, first and foremost, these people aren't protesting. Holding up a sign saying "Here to chat if you like" is not protesting. Praying silently in your own head is not protesting. And on the other hand, it's not access to reproductive health care. It's not reproductive because it literally stops reproduction. It's not healthy and it's not caring because it's killing babies. And so the Prime Minister of the United Kingdom was entirely disingenuous. What's going on here is a separation from reality, a separation from the fact that we are made in the image of God, Imago Dei, that every single human life is sacred, and that the value of the human life isn't determined by the state, isn't determined by the mother, it's not determined by any of us. The value of every single human life is determined by God. He values us as all being worthy in his eyes. We all have dignity, integrity, and worth. And so what the state... And so what the state is doing is it's separating us from that image. And the law in the UK for PSPOs, public space protection orders, or buffer zones or bubble zones, explicitly outlaws silent prayer. And so we've got a few cases. There were some images up at the start of, I think Father Sean was up there and Isabel Vaughan Spruce were up there, very well-known cases. Father Sean was down outside one of these abortion centres silently praying. He had a bumper sticker on his car that was pro-life, therefore he was arrested. Thankfully he wasn't charged, but still. Isabel Vaughan Spruce, probably the most prominent name. I'm sure many of you in this room will know of her, if not know her directly. Wonderful woman. She's been fighting this good fight for many years. She got arrested. The police came up to her and said, "Are you praying silently for the lives of unborn children?" And she said, "Yes, I am." She got charged, and they waited the 90 days or whatever they have to wait before they can either take it to court or drop the case, and they dropped the case. Now, Isabel Vaughan Spruce, being an ardent warrior for Christ, got out there again and again and again, and she's been arrested again and again and again. And the latest time it went through to court. The same with our friend Adam Smith Connor. Now, Adam, you may know because the Vice President mentioned him in the Munich speech when he was combating the lack of free speech in Europe. And he mentioned Adam Smith Connor's case. Adam is a father who is also repenting of the fact that his family aborted a child 20 odd years ago, and he does the same thing. He's out there combating day after day, praying for the lives of unborn children. He got arrested, he got charged, he got prosecuted, and the judge found him guilty of silently praying in his own head. And the judge said this could be seen as disapproving of abortion. Now, so what? There shouldn't be a law against disapproving against anything. But disapproving of the killing of unborn babies, surely any sane, decent human being can agree with that disapproval. However, prayer isn't disapproval. Under any guise, prayer is support, prayer is compassion, prayer is mercy, prayer is charity. It's not disapproval. And so to be found guilty of appearing disapproving of abortion for standing there, literally like this, behind a tree, for goodness sake, not even in the line of sight of the abortion centre, just shows what the real message is here. They don't want us praying. I highlight again the fact that in the UK there was no instance of abuse, harassment, intimidation, very different to the situation in Canada. They brought this legislation in unnecessarily, specifically to stop us from praying. Now, we have several cases where this has been happening not just around the start of life, which of course is at the moment of conception, as Ruth points out, but after birth too. You may remember the story of 8-month-old baby Indy. Baby Indy Gregory had a debilitating illness, and the British healthcare system, which of course is a welfare state system, socialist healthcare system, said, "We can't do anything for you," to her parents. "We're going to have to turn off your life support." Baby Indy's parents didn't want her life support turning off because they loved her and they wanted to fight for her life. And they found experimental treatments abroad. In fact, it was in Italy, and the Vatican offered to get baby Indy out there to Italy to get this treatment. The UK said, no, we can't offer you treatment, and therefore you can't get treatment elsewhere. And they took the family's passports away. Now, the Vatican offered to make them residents of, or give them immigration status, give them visas essentially, in Italy in order to help them. It's one of the rare modern cases where the church has been doing something good. And the UK system stopped them from flying, they stopped them from leaving, and unfortunately baby Indy is no longer with us. Because the healthcare system doesn't value human life. If you're not fit, if you're not healthy, you have no point in living. Again, it doesn't recognize that all of us are made in the image of God, and God designed us and loved us and knew us before we were born. And the case that I always talk about in these speeches is the case of Suriksha Thurmalesh. Suriksha Thurmalesh was known to me as Patient ST. Patient ST also had a debilitating illness, but she was 19 years old. And the same situation occurred. The socialist healthcare system, the National Death Service, said, "We can't do anything for you. We're going to have to take you off life support and end your life. You are actively dying." And Suriksha, being a young woman, but an adult in terms of UK law, said, "I want to die fighting to live." And the national healthcare system said, "No, you can't do that. We can't do anything for you. You are going to die." And her parents said, "No, we're going to fight this." They found an experimental treatment abroad, again, this time, believe it or not, in Canada. And the parents tried to get patient ST taken over to Canada, and the NHS took the parents to court. I mean, it's baffling still. Every time I talk about this, I'm like, I can't understand the thought process. But anyway, the judge said, "Look, we'll have to have some medical examinations to find out if you're compos mentis." And so she had psychotherapists and analysts, and they said, yes, she is a young woman capable of making her own decisions. She can get on with her own life. And medical surgeons said, no, she's clearly delusional because she's not following our advice, which is that she's actively dying. And the judge sided with the medical surgeons. And so this case was brought to my attention when I still had my TV show, and I said, okay, this is it. We need to get praying for patient ST. And the judge said, well, you can't really do that because we're putting an injunction on her as well. So you're not allowed to use her name publicly, which highlights the matter here. They do not want us praying. This is what this is all about. They want to be in control of when we live and when we die, whether it's abortion, whether it's healthcare, or whether it's euthanasia. From the whole process, from the moment we are born to the moment we naturally die, they want to govern that. They want to play God. And so I said on air, okay, well, stuff it. I don't care about this law. This law is immoral. This law is unjust. This law is not right. I'm willing to break this law. Whatever. If I lose my show, so be it. If I go to jail, so be it. Patient ST matters more. Now, unfortunately, after saying that on air and getting back in touch with her parents and the lawyers, patient ST died. So she didn't get the opportunity to go to Canada and get experimental treatment. She died at the hands of the state because the state thought it knew better. The state thought it could deem whether someone was going to live or die, whether someone was going to fight or not, whether someone's life was valuable or not. And that's what all this is about, whether it's the buffer zones or bubble zones, whether it's euthanasia that we're pushing in the UK now. We're looking at Canada and saying, let's have some of that. It's insane. We're seeing you guys put down people who are poor, vulnerable, veterans who can't afford to support themselves. I had a case on my show once where someone phoned up at the healthcare system in Canada and said, I can't afford a stair lift and I can't get up and down the stairs. And someone on the other end of the phone said, have you thought about, MAID? It's like, what? You can't function to the degree that we think you should be able to function, therefore just kill yourself. It's evil, it's demonic, and it's what is ruling the West. And the only way to turn this around is by returning to prayer. Every time they try to stop us, try to silence us, try to arrest us, try to outlaw us, we need to pray even more. Pray all the harder for the lives of the unborn, for the vulnerable, for the survivors, for the women with trauma who've been through this, that they repent, and for the lives that haven't made it. Every single person, for the lawmakers, we need to pray unendingly, unceasingly. This is the only way we return Western civilization back to what it was before we used to call it the West, which was Christendom. I think that's a decent place to end, so I will say my heart goes out to you. God bless you.